Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back, crushed college football this year. Week in and week out, he put up insane numbers and took home numerous awards, including the Maxwell, the Doak Walker, and finishing second in the Heisman race. In this video, I'm going to talk about who Ashton Jeanty is and the events that made him into the player he is today. Before I get started, I make college sports videos on my channel, so if that interests you, consider subscribing to my channel. I'm not monetized. I make these videos out of pure enjoyment, so thank you for watching. Ashton Jeanty was born in 2003 in Jacksonville, Florida. It's crazy to think about. Ashton Jeanty's younger than I am. It's a wild feeling if you haven't experienced that yet. Trust me, when you go through that experience, it's kind of trippy. But Ashton grew up in a traditional military upbringing. His father, Harry Jeanty, was a chief petty officer in the United States Navy, so his whole life had structure. Sometimes children or young adults act out and have behavioral problems, but that's never really an issue for military families. And growing up, Ashton was always considered to be very respectful and well-mannered. The Jeanty family would constantly move throughout Ashton's childhood and young adult life. He was first introduced to football at Great Bridge Middle School in Chesapeake, Virginia, but it wasn't tackle football, so it's not really football, kind of is, kind of not. After Ashton's 7th grade year in 2018, the family would relocate again, this time around the world to Aversa, Italy. This is common for military families. It's rare they stay in one area and often move from state to state or country to country. Aversa is located about 15 miles outside of Naples. It's a small historic town, only 50 or so thousand people live there. And Jeanty is more associated with Naples, although technically he did live outside of the city. While in Italy, Ashton's father, Harry Jeanty, said his son loved being in Italy. He said he got along great with the other boys, he loved the culture, and it was an overall really good experience. His exact words when asked about Ashton in Italy is that over here, Ashton is in heaven. His freshman year was his first experience ever playing tackle football, and he was a part of the Naples Wildcats. But who's Ashton Jeanty? That's the question Coach Jim Davis asked because he's never seen Ashton before. He had no idea what to expect. He was just another American kid coming. He's going to play football. He didn't really think anything of it. But Coach Davis wanted to see, what has this kid got? So he gave Ashton the ball and said, here, make something happen. His first play, Ashton got the ball, made a cut through the line, and is face-to-face in the gap with the linebacker. You have freshman Ashton Jeanty against the senior captain linebacker for the Naples Wildcats. Coach Davis recalled Ashton was so aggressive, he ran the linebacker over, forcefully knocked him on his behind, and ran directly through him. At that point, Coach Davis realized, okay, this kid is good. Initially, Jeanty was a quarterback. That lasted less than 2 games, and then he transitioned to being the full-time running back. He amassed over 1,200 rushing yards and 21 touchdowns in 6 games. Since this was a military-based school, they only had a 6-game season where they would play other military-based schools. Still, that's 200 yards per game and 3.5 touchdowns per game as a freshman. After his rockstar freshman year, Ashton Jeanty realized, I'm pretty good at football. So he asked his dad, can we go back to the US so I can pursue this at a high school back home? Because let's be honest, no scholarships and recruits are going to come from playing on the Naples Wildcats. I was under the impression in the military, you don't get to choose where you go. You kind of go wherever you're told and deal with it. But that's not necessarily true because the following season, Ashton's family would return to the U.S. and settle in Frisco, Texas. And Ashton would enroll as a sophomore at Lone Star High School. You're probably thinking Ashton Jeanty had amazing stats as soon as he got to Lone Star, and you'd be wrong. Ashton Jeanty didn't even play running back. The thing is, Lone Star already had 2 solid running backs at the time, and Jeanty would have to wait his turn. There's no chance he's going to jump over these 2 players. But rather than sitting on the bench, Jeanty played receiver, giving him a chance to work on his pass-catching skills. Today in 2024, Jeanty is considered one of the best pass-catching running backs in the entire country. Ashton also played safety on defense. Like the Heisman winner this year, Travis Hunter, in high school, Jeanty also played 2 ways. That's how his sophomore and junior year went. Now, it's senior year, and he's finally the RB1 for Lone Star. But this is real high stakes. This isn't like college now where if you get hurt, you can get an extension year, or you can stay for 7-8 years like some players do now. You're in high school for 4 years. Jeanty was a backup running back for 2 years and spent 1 year in Naples. And 1 shot was all he needed. Jeanty had an exceptional year during his 1 season starting at Lone Star. He rushed for over 1,800 yards and an insane 41 touchdowns. If they played a 10-game season, that means Jeanty would rush for 4 touchdowns per game. That's crazy that you're scoring that much. These numbers would propel him to superstar status in Texas high school football. People know about what's going on. They watch these games. They go to these games. Just look at some of the high school stadiums in Texas and you'd think they're colleges. But with these insane numbers, Jeanty became something of a local legend. This led him to becoming a 3-star recruit. It's easy to look at Jeanty now and say, wow, how is this guy only 3 stars? The more I think about it, it makes sense. His time in Naples doesn't really count. Look at the competition level. They're playing the children of servicemen and women in the military. And his sophomore and junior year, he wasn't a running back, so he only really had 1 full season to prove what he can do. If he had 2 or 3 seasons playing running back, I definitely think Jeanty would have been ranked higher than a 3-star. But still, Jeanty received a handful of offers. I was intrigued the fact that Jeanty was offered from a lot of really good academic schools. We're talking UPenn, Dartmouth, and Cal. UPenn and Dartmouth are Ivy League schools. Cal is not an Ivy League school, but its reputation, honestly, it pretty much is. And that gives the indication that Jeanty was great not only on the field, but also in the classroom. The thing is, when you have athletes that are known for football, basketball, whatever, there's not really a lot of data as far as what they do in their classes. But the fact that these schools offered Jeanty is a good sign that he was a really good student. Penn and Dartmouth aren't FBS schools, so Jeanty wasn't interested in going down the FCS route. And Cal, well, yeah, it's an FBS school. It's not a very good one. The only other Power 5 school that offered Jeanty was Kansas. And this isn't the Kansas we know today. This is the Kansas that's going to win 1, maybe 2 games. Or honestly, they might lose to an FCS school. This is back when Kansas was really bad. So Jeanty wasn't in a rush to go there either. He was also offered by all service academies. When a parent is active or has served in the military, it's basically a free ticket to their child being offered to go to the service academy. He didn't see himself as a soldier. I do think it would be interesting to consider what would the service academy be like if Jeanty did commit there. Remember, his dad is in the military. Let's say Jeanty commits to Navy and follows in his dad's footsteps as being a naval officer. Imagine the Navy with a player like Jeanty on it. A lot of times we look at service academies, but what we don't realize, they're not getting high-level recruits like other schools. Yeah, they're getting soldiers and they're being trained and they're tough, but they're not getting the 3, 4, 5-star athletes. If a player like Jeanty was on Navy, I'd be really curious to see how they performed, especially considering the fact Navy was pretty good this year without Jeanty. With those 6 schools out of the way, Jeanty still has a handful of offers, but they're not really to very good schools. You got New Mexico, North Texas, Tulsa. There's not many schools you're rushing to sign with. There was one team that stood out, and that team was Boise State. Boise has been good for a long time. Honestly, I don't remember a time in my life Boise wasn't good. They're constantly winning conference titles and putting up 10-win seasons. Not only do they beat conference teams that they're just better than, they play up to competition. Look this year when they played Oregon. They only lost by 3 and it was on a last-second field goal. Point is, Boise has been good for a really long time. And they saw a lot of potential in Jeanty even though he only played for 1 year. That potential became reality because Jeanty would sign with the Boise State Broncos and he showed what he can do from day one. Jeanty's career began the moment he arrived on campus. A lot of freshmen, they get redshirted or they get put low on the depth chart. Jeanty got good playing time as a true freshman. He ended up splitting the backfield with current running back George Holani, and as a true freshman, Jeanty racked up 821 yards. The fact a true freshman ran for 821 yards says a lot. 821 yards is good for any running back, really. The fact that a true freshman was able to come in and get so many yards is a really good sign of what's to come. But the craziest part about it is that he did that in a split backfield, so he wasn't even the running back 1, he was a rotational back, and he still got 821 yards. Jeanty's performance running for 178 yards in the Frisco Bowl really put the spotlight on him as being a player we need to watch going forward. And the following season, he was the unquestioned #1 running back for Boise. Not only is Jeanty starting as a running back as a true sophomore, but he's starting on a good team. In 2023, Jeanty ran for 1,347 yards and 14 touchdowns. And he led the NCAA with 569 receiving yards. Remember, in high school, he played receiver, so he was able to retain a lot of those receiving skills now playing running back, and it gives him an advantage over other running backs who don't have that same skill set. Jeanty would finish as the Mountain West Player of the Year, and look, the Mountain West might not be the best conference, but every conference has good players in it. And Jeanty was without a doubt the Player of the Year in the Mountain West, and he would also be named a first-team All-American. This is a really prestigious award, being awarded a first-team All-American title. At this point, I think a lot of people know about Jeanty, but I don't think a lot of people know who Jeanty is. I think part of the reason is where Boise is. They're a West Coast team, so their games naturally will come on later. And the Mountain West is pretty much all West Coast teams, so you're going to get 9, 10, 11 p.m. Eastern time kickoffs, and there's a lot of people on the East Coast who just aren't going to stay up and tune into those games if they're on TV at all. Now sure, the die-hard football fans, we knew who Jeanty was, but from a common, average fan perspective, I don't think they really knew who Jeanty was at this point. After the 2023 season, I thought Jeanty would transfer. We see this a lot when players have really good years at Group of 5 schools. They just look to go to a bigger program, whether it's for NIL or whether it's for better pro prospect evaluation. Because let's be honest, if you're trying to get drafted, you can definitely go to a better school in Boise. And if you're trying to get more NIL, you can definitely go to a better school in Boise. But Jeanty was not persuaded. He just said, no, I want to stay home. He absolutely loved being in Boise. It's like a second home. Well, it's like a 10th home because he's moved like 50 times in his life. Jeanty's season started off as good as it possibly could this past year with a 267-yard game against Georgia Southern and 6 touchdowns. I was watching this game live. I had a little bit of money on it, so I was kind of invested in who won. And I kid you not, every time Jeanty touched the ball, he either scored or ran for 20 yards. I've never seen a performance like it. Even when I thought, oh, he won't do it again, he did it. It's like back to back to back. And this crazy level of performance was a week in, week out thing. Jeanty's fewest yards this season is 127. That's higher than many backs are going to have the whole season. And that's Jeanty's lowest performance. But check this out. It was against Portland State. That's an FCS school. Boise dominated Portland State, and Jeanty didn't play the whole game. So if he'd played the full game, he was on pace to get 254 rushing yards. That's nearly as good as his performance against Georgia Southern. In 6 out of his 12 games, he had over 200 yards rushing. He scored touchdowns in all of his games this season except for Portland State, but remember, he didn't play the second half. He's going to break Barry Sanders' record. I'm recording this before their playoff game. I don't know if they're going to play Penn State or SMU, but let's be real, neither team is going to stop him. Every team knew this whole season what Boise State is going to do. They're going to give it to number 2. They played UNLV 2 times this year. Now, a lot of people don't realize UNLV was actually one of the top run defenses in the country this past season. Jeanty ran for 128 yards and 2 TDs in their first matchup, and in their second matchup in the Mountain West Championship game, he ran for 209 and 1 touchdown. So even against high caliber defenses that stopped the run, they still couldn't stop Jeanty. And the thing is, they knew they were going to give the ball to Jeanty and they still couldn't stop it. I know there's still some critics that say, oh, it's UNLV, they're in the Mountain West, they're not really playing good teams. Look at their game against Oregon. Oregon's undefeated, number 1 in the country. Jeanty ran for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns on Oregon. They're the best team in the country, and he's still putting up these 200-yard performances. So I feel very confident that he is going to ultimately break that record, and that's insane to think about. And sure, it's a different situation now with the college football playoff. The season length isn't the same. You can't blame Jeanty for breaking a record in 2024, playing under 2024 rules. Sure, there might be more games or opportunities for Jeanty to break these records, but it doesn't make the record any less broken. If we took into consideration every single rule change, we'd be saying that people in like the 1930s had all the records because the game has changed so much. I love seeing Barry Sanders post about how Ashton is really deserving of it, go out there and break it. And that's super cool to see because records, they're made to be broken. And for people who might be critical of Jeanty playing in those extra games, I would argue this. He's not really playing in extra games because he has sat out 3 halves this year when Boise is up by so much. He's only played 10.5 games this season due to being taken out. If he did play those other games, I feel very confident that Jeanty would have got that record during the regular season and we wouldn't even have to speculate if he gets it in the CFP or not. There was a lot of speculation around Ashton Jeanty and the Heisman Trophy. I'll be honest, this is a very tricky topic because on one hand, Ashton Jeanty 100% deserves the Heisman Trophy for his performance this year. I mean, how do you not give it to someone that's doing this well? Also, the thing is, if you compare Jeanty's stats to other Heisman-winning running backs in the past few years, Jeanty is leaps and bounds better than all of them. So if they won, how does Jeanty not win? At the same time, Travis Hunter also 100% deserves the Heisman. I've never seen a player as dominant as he was, making the plays he makes. When he gets on the field, man, if you throw the ball to him, he will catch it. It doesn't matter, man. He is an insane athlete. 2 players 100% deserve to win. And I really wish there was a way to split a Heisman Trophy. And I feel really bad that Ashton did not win given his crazy season. But I will say, the one thing that Jeanty has that Hunter doesn't, Jeanty has a chance to win a championship. I think Jeanty would rather be a national champion than a Heisman winner. Boise obviously is a long shot to win the title this year, but in all fairness, they beat UNLV twice, they're a top 25 team, and their one game against a playoff caliber Oregon, it came down to the last second field goal for Oregon to win. Do I think they're gonna go win a championship? Probably not. But do I think they can legitimately find themselves in the semifinals or maybe in the finals? Yeah, I think it's a possibility. They're gonna face SMU or Penn State, and I think they can beat both of them, if I'm being completely honest with you. Then they're gonna face Indiana, Notre Dame, or Georgia. That's probably gonna be a matchup with Georgia if they get to that point. Do I think they can beat Georgia? Maybe. I mean, Georgia obviously is a great team, but the whole situation with Carson Beck, he's hurt. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of question marks about Georgia, and frankly, I don't think Georgia's been this juggernaut this year either. Certainly no cakewalk, but it's possible. But what I find so interesting about Jeanty is how universally liked he is. Do you know anybody that doesn't like this guy? Like, seriously. Yeah, everybody knows Jeanty's a Heisman candidate. Everybody knows Jeanty's on track to break records. But Jeanty never puts the spotlight on himself. People might put it on him, but he doesn't focus it on himself. He's a team player. He knows winning comes first. And that's why his teammates say he is one of the best teammates they've ever had.
Ever a moment, freshman Ashton, I mean, was there ever a moment where you're like, yo, like this guy, Ashton Jeanty, like this guy's different?
I mean, I always knew he was gonna be insane. I don't even know what % body fat he is, but it's just all muscle. It is all muscle. I see him like every time after runs, he was bringing the tailbacks out there and just doing more drills when no one else was working. It's the stuff that people don't see on Twitter that makes him stand out even more to me, you know?
He has an infectious personality, an infectious smile. He's a great guy.
So Jaden, I'm curious, why do you think Ashton Jeanty should win the Heisman?
Best running back, obviously. He's not just an athlete. I feel like there's other stuff, like he's doing the scholarship. He's in the community out here, extremely humble. Like you can see the other Heisman runner talking a little trash online and stuff, and you see he doesn't respond because he doesn't, like, there's no need to do all of that. If he continues to have the season that he's having right now, it's going to be a tough pick between the two.
I'll be honest, I tried to uncover some dirt on Ashton Jeanty, not to try to make him look bad or try to paint him in a negative light, but the truth is we all have flaws. We all have things that we aren't proud of, we should work on, and I always strive to present a well-rounded picture. I could not find one thing worth talking about in a negative light. He is that much of a respectful, genuine, honorable young man. I think that's such a big reason why he has become so likable among America and among college football fans. If you watch the Heisman Trophy ceremony, you can tell by his demeanor the type of guy that he is.
I think, first of all, just having a great group of teammates around me, coaches, and then obviously the people I got sitting right here next to me, my family, you know, who's been supporting me every step of the way.
That's the kind of guy I would want to go out and play with. He's already told us he's leaving for the NFL next season, and I don't blame him. He's not going to be able to put up any better performance in college. He's already solidified himself as a first-round NFL draft pick. He's a Heisman finalist. He's breaking records left and right, taking home trophies. And a lot of what we do is focus on what players accomplish at the next level to label them. Are they a star? Are they a bust? Look at a player like Johnny Manziel. In college, he was great. Johnny Manziel was the hot thing. In the NFL, he was a bozo. And a lot of people label him as a failure, as a bad football player. But in reality, he's one of the best college players of all time, even though he was doing crazy stuff on the side. It doesn't even matter what Jeanty does in the NFL. What he has done already in his life has already cemented him as a tremendous success. He's done things no one thought was possible. He's already racked up an NIL value of $1.4 million. That will set him and his family for life. And look, that's just the NIL valuation. When you become big and you build a personal brand, there's a lot more than what just comes in straight NIL sponsorship deals. You have your personal brand, you have social medias, you have brand and gear you can sell. You have all kinds of ways you can leverage yourself to make money. He's set for life. And if he's anything like his Boise State teammates claim him to be, I'm sure his NFL teammates will like him just the same. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to my channel. I make college sports videos on this channel. That's all I do. I'm not monetized on YouTube. I just make these videos out of pure enjoyment because I love college sports. Y'all have been very encouraging and supportive of me, so I want to thank you for that. Please, if you like it, subscribe.